Hello and welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning. I am still your host, Tony Gerdeman. The Indiana game is in 83 days, the game against Michigan in 167 days. We have a busy week at Buckeye Huddle planned for you. We've got three one-day camps for Ohio State prospects, commits, offer guys. The first will be Monday. The second will be Wednesday. The third will be Thursday. And so we're going to have plenty of stuff from that throughout the week. Before we get to that, there's still some things from the Ohio State coaches that I wanted to touch on and some names that I think people should be interested in. And so that's what today's show will be. And there is plenty of depth on the offensive side of the ball for the Buckeyes, which is where we'll concentrate today. And so for some unheralded guys to come up that depth chart and contribute will be difficult, but I still think there are some names to keep in mind. We'll start at running back, where there is some good depth for Coach Tony Alford, and this is probably the deepest room he's had to this point. And it's about he's working on finding the, what each guy does best, the best way to utilize them. And so that's what they did in the spring. They'll continue to do that moving forward so that they can find roles for these guys and the best places to put them in so that they can excel when they do get the ball.
The more the merrier, right? I mean, it's like a kid at Christmas. The more presents you got, the better, right? But no, I mean, it is what it is. And, we needed every bit of depth that we could have last year. And hopefully that doesn't repeat itself. But it's always good to have depth. And competition makes everybody rise. So I think it's a good situation to be in.
Do you find yourself looking at guys and going, this guy might be good for this type of situation or this type of...
Yeah, I think that everyone has different skill sets and traits that they're better at than maybe some others, and that's our job as coach to put them in the best situation to help our football team.
So much has been said about Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams for good reason, both returning starters for the Buckeyes. We saw Dallin Hayden as a true freshman last year, finished third on the team in rushing, really leading them in a couple of games last year. The Maryland game, he put the team on his back, basically. Chip Trainum comes in, moves from linebacker to running back, ends up leading the team in rushing against Michigan as the fifth and final option, basically, for them. But there is another guy waiting in the wings, and I shouldn't say waiting. He's been injured, and that is Evan Pryor, who is now a third-year guy, redshirt sophomore, who played in 4 games as a true freshman so that he could keep his redshirt and carried the ball 21 times, caught 2 passes, and then, of course, missed last year with a knee injury, missed this spring, just finishing up the recovery time frame from that injury. But he is a guy that has tremendous potential. He's very athletic, very fast, a guy that can do a number of different things. And this has not been an easy thing for Evan Pryor to miss an entire season, to only play 4 games as a true freshman, all while coming in at the same time as Travion Henderson, seeing the success that Henderson had as a true freshman, and then having to watch everybody get the ball last year as injuries hit the running backs hard. And so Evan Pryor is a guy that is somebody that Tony Alford has been talking to quite a bit and is talking about more and more as questions get asked, as it's getting closer and closer to the time when Evan Pryor can get back on the field for Buckeye fans to see what exactly what he can do.
Well, I think that's part of being a coach, right, and part of being a parent, and you have to know your players and you have to know your kids and what buttons to push, and kind of when you got to push them along, or when you got to hug them up, or when you have to encourage them, when you have to scold them, all those different things that come about. And Evan's a very prideful young guy. He's highly motivated and a confident person in his own skill set, and so there were some rough days for him, as there would be for anybody. And but that's where we talk about the brotherhood. That's where we talk about the family atmosphere that we've all got to lift one another up. And it's not just player to coach. A lot of times the players got to lift the coaches, and vice versa. So that's being part of a team and part of a family, and I think Evan's in a good place right now.
With the transfer of Caleb Brown, wide receiver, redshirt freshman, who was working with the ones basically as a kick returner, you could see Evan Pryor get back involved there as well this season.
Hope so. Yeah, we'll obviously get some shots at that. And, that was something that he was going to do before the injury happened and was sustained. So yeah, we'll hopefully be able to get him back into that fold as well.
Moving to the offensive line, it is an offensive line return starters, Matt Jones at right guard and Donovan Jackson at left guard. Other than that, however, you've lost 3 starters to the NFL: Paris Johnson at left tackle, Duwan Jones at right tackle, Luke Whippler at center. All of them could have come back for another year. All chose to go ahead and leave for the NFL. That has since left the Buckeyes in a bit of a bind as offensive line coach Justin Frye tries to find a starting 5. One of the scenarios that has been put forth is maybe Donovan Jackson could slide over from left guard to left tackle. We did not see that in the spring, as it was Josh Fryer at left tackle for basically the entire spring as the number 1 left tackle. There's a competition at right tackle between Tegra Shabola and Zen Mahalski. And then after spring, of course, they brought in Josh Simmons from San Diego State, a starting right tackle for the Aztecs as a redshirt freshman last year. But Justin Frye was asked about the kind of scenario where maybe they would have to move Donovan Jackson to left tackle. And here's what he said about that.
What scenario you would paint, you'd have to figure out. But at the end of the day, we got to play the 5 best. And so I've always said this. You've probably heard me say this many times. If the right guard goes down and the backup right guard is not the 6th best guy and your backup right tackle is, then you got to find a way to get your 5th best guy on the field. So I think that's pretty universal, though, as you look around, even historically here, watching tape before I got here, cut-ups of guys slide in different positions. You got to play your 5 best guys. It's not just, you just move the checker up if the guy in front of you down. So, God, I hope we don't have to break that glass. So let's not put that out there. But could Donnie do it if needed to? Absolutely. Could Matt slide over and play a different position if needed to? Yeah. Look at a guy, Josh Frye, who was right tackle, then right tight end, left tight end. Now he's playing some left tackle. We're going to find a way to try to get your 5 best on the field.
So much has been said about the right tackle position at Ohio State that I don't think enough has been said maybe about what's happening at center. The Buckeyes, after the season, went into the portal to get Victor Cutler out of Louisiana Monroe, started at left tackle for Louisiana Monroe last year, but has a history at center, and so they brought him in to compete for the center job. Carson Hinsman, as a redshirt freshman, spent the entirety of the spring as the number 1 center. And, of course, you've got Jacob James, a 4th-year junior who was injured this spring, didn't participate, but is another guy that is expected to get involved. So even though Carson Hinsman was with the ones all spring long, you've got Victor Cutler, who is learning the offense, and by the time they get to fall camp, he'll know the offense. And, of course, Jacob James getting back in there as well. So those 3 will compete in the fall and fall camp, which just gives you more evidence that there's still a lot to come from this offensive line as Justin Frye looks for a starting 5.
Yeah, so no, we're not set. I can't tell you who the 5 guys are right now. And that's a good thing because it means guys are going to fight for it. They were asking earlier about Jacob coming back in it. Now you see Jacob because we had Carson, we had Vic in the spring, and yeah, we got 3 guys now fighting for those reps. And so, that's going to be really good for the team and good for those kids because, the guy that wins it is going to have to play his best ball. That's one thing it's not given to anybody. They're all going to fight for that, and same with the tackle positions too. So, yeah, healthy competition ahead of us because of the amount of guys fighting for it. With, Zenue's coming back into it. Tegra had a good spring moving out there. Josh has obviously played. Both Josh. I got to figure it out too. I got 3 Joshes in my room right now, so it's like back in the day when your mother got mad at you and she used your middle name, and then you're like, all right, she's really talking to me. So I got to figure that out one way or the other.
And just as those 3 names at center are some names to keep in mind, Josh Simmons is one as well. As I said, he was a starting right tackle at San Diego State, has come to Ohio State with no established starter at either left tackle or right tackle. I think the assumption was that he would start out at right tackle and see what happens there. He would compete for that job. But according to Justin Frye, everybody's going to be working everywhere. Basically, left or right, it doesn't matter. You better get ambidextrous and try to figure it out as he looks for the best five, the best left tackle, the best right tackle, and so on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's for both sides. That's what I said. Like, I mean, we got to play the five best. So is Josh Simmons a left or a right? Is he staying at right? Is he staying only at left? Is the other Josh hanging around? Like, I don't have all those answers yet. They're gonna have a good winter or a good summer with Mick. They're gonna have good stuff out here. But yes, they'll all be setting right sides and left sides. They'll all be doing individual drills, so that we can keep fighting through that.
The newest position coach at Ohio State is Keenan Bailey, even though Keenan Bailey has been here longer than just about anybody. He's, of course, been hanging around as, I think he's had every single job there is, and now at Ohio State, beneath an assistant coach, and I shouldn't say beneath an assistant coach, but subordinate perhaps to an assistant coach, and now he himself, the full-time position coach at tight end for the Buckeyes. And he's got a room with some talented returning players, starting with Cade Stover coming back for his fifth and final season. One of the best tight ends in the Big Ten, maybe the best tight end in the Big Ten. We'll see this fall. Two other players with some experience, Joe Royer, G. Scott. You saw them plenty last year. You saw G. Scott plenty last year. Joe Royer getting some action this spring. A guy that they really had high expectations for last year, but some circumstances kept that from happening. But there are three other guys that maybe you don't necessarily hear about, and that would be a redshirt sophomore Sam Hart, redshirt freshman Bennett Christian, and a true freshman Jelani Thurman, who you have heard a little bit more about than perhaps even Cade Stover, G. Scott, and Joe Royer at this point, because he was impressive in the spring. But first, Keenan Bailey was asked about Sam Hart and Bennett Christian, two guys who have only played sparingly. Sam Hart played in the playoff game because every single person got hurt in that game, basically, at tight end. But here's what he had to say about two young guys that have not really had an opportunity or not made an opportunity yet, but that he likes the possibilities that they bring.
Yeah, both those guys, I mean, all the guys, Bennett and Sam, I was just saying, those were the two that I got to work out with this morning. So they were the first two in here, so they turned my head. I'm fired up for them. I can't wait for all their contributions to the unit. Yeah, I think everyone has some strengths and weaknesses, but I don't know if there's one thing that Sam needs to do or one thing Bennett needs to do. Let's keep getting better as blockers and route runners, as a whole unit.
And as I said, one of the talks of the spring was Jelani Thurman, the 6'6", 253-pound tight end from Georgia, who enrolled early and had some really, really strong moments in the spring. Certainly looks the part and had some growing to do in the spring. And even though he came in seemingly fully grown, but a guy that everybody was talking about, at least media-wise. I believe Keenan Bailey at one point said he hasn't talked about. He's been asked more about Jelani Thurman than any player he's ever had, and that's kind of on us, the media, for just getting hyper focused on something and berating somebody to the point of the way we have. But Keenan Bailey was asked about the possibilities of Jelani Thurman having a significant role this season. And while we may talk about it, Keenan Bailey isn't necessarily shooting for that or isn't looking for that.
I don't know. I think when you start putting expectations on, that's when you start getting jammed up. All I asked for him was to strain and learn our culture by the end of spring ball and learn to know what to do. And now I'm challenging him. You're not a freshman anymore. I know he still is, but after spring ball, you have a black stripe on. You're not a freshman anymore. So now I'm holding him to the standard of G and Joe and Cade and Bennett and Sam and the rest of the guys. So it's only to get harder, now that we're raising that expectation for him, if that makes sense. I don't know how much he's going to play. Hopefully a lot. Hopefully all these guys play a lot.
So that will do it for today's show. As I said, we will have more on the one-day camps this week, a bunch of prospects to talk about, and we'll have some recaps from there. going to have a running diary on the Buckeye Huddle message board. If you're not a member, join and follow us there. If you are a member, we'll have something going just like we did last week with Wednesday's camp. A ton of action from that, videos, interviews, tweets, highlights, all kinds of insight there as well. So go ahead and find that at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and like and hit the thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't. And of course, we are also on Facebook, so you can search us for Buckeye Huddle on Facebook. Follow us there as well. So I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.